Hi, this is Marty Murphy, and welcome back. In the last newsletter, I did a video and I talked about doing a self-assessment, like looking at your life and checking into the areas of your life that you feel are sort of less desirable than you like them to be. You're not in exactly the place you want to be with that, or you're way far away from the place you want to be, whether it's the work you do, you're not doing meaningful work that really fulfills you, or your relationship's not where you want it to be, or family life isn't that way. Whatever area of your life that is that shows up for you is to do that assessment. And very often when we can do that, what happens for us is this layer of self-judgment comes up. And that's what I want to talk about in this video newsletter is why is self-acceptance so important? And I remember years ago when I was in a 12-step group and they'd say, the Pat line, acceptance is the first step. And at times I was like, ugh, that's like nauseating. Because I never really quite understood it in the same way that I understand it now. And the more I've worked on myself, the more I work with clients, I really get this piece now, why self-acceptance is so important. Because when we come to a place of acceptance about ourselves, it means we're removing this layer of self-judgment. And anytime we are still judging ourselves, it virtually makes positive, lasting, effective change impossible. And so often I see this in the work that I do. Before you can even get to even really the layers below that where the core issue is, the first layer that's overlaying all this is self-judgment. It's like we have a judgment. So just say you picked like, man, I am not doing meaningful work I love. And then you notice the self-talk, and you'll find it's typically a pretty negative, critical voice that's coming after you and like, oh, see, you should have had this together so long ago. You're too old to do this. It's that kind of critical voice. It's a critical authority voice figure. That's the first issue to attend to. So when you do the assessment, and I said, hey, kind of pay attention to what comes up around that, it's to get in touch with that voice that's judging you, coming after you, telling you you're not good enough. And that's the first piece to remove. And without that, you will find you stay stuck in a pattern and you do not create positive traction and positive lasting change. And I find often that gets missed is it's like, well, I tapped through this thing or I worked on this issue. But when the self-judgment is still there, things aren't going to last. You might get temporary relief. But when you can virtually come to a place and go, you know what? I'm not doing meaningful work I love. I'm not in the best place in my relationship. My physical health isn't where I want it to be. And you just take note of that. And you notice there's not a lot of really any judgment around. It's just like, yep, that's just what is. It's what is. Then you're in a place where you're free and clear to affect positive, lasting change. So I'm going to do a tapping sequence on this particular video newsletter about coming to this place of self-acceptance. And again, paying attention to that inner critic, that critical voice that comes after you and tells you you're not good enough, tells you you should have had this figured out by now. And what I often find is when you start getting in touch with that voice, you can have this sense like, oh my God, I think I'm getting worse. The truth is you're actually getting better because it's like you start putting a microscope or like a neon sign is lit up around. You're so in tune and attentive to the inner critic that it feels like you're in fact getting worse. But what's happening is you are making the unconscious become conscious. You can't do anything when something is unconsciously rooted in you. But with tapping, the goal is we bring the unconscious into consciousness and then we tap through it and it releases. So if you get that feeling like, oh my God, this voice is on me all the time, it's after me all the time, it's actually really good news. So take heart and know that now you've made the unconscious conscious, And you can start to affect positive, lasting change. So, that said, your mission, if you decide to accept it, is just do your best from now until the next newsletter of starting to pay attention to that inner critic and notice that voice that's wah, 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 wah. After you've done this assessment, see this area of my life, and just take note of it. And you can tap through it. If you want to do that, just say, talk to that voice. Oh, there you are. You're coming after me. I feel you judging me. You're being hard on me. You're really judging me. That really sucks for me. I don't like feeling that way. And I'm just putting you on notice. I know you're doing this now. So that's a really simple way on your own where, again, you don't have to figure out the clever things to say or how to tap properly. Just literally have a conversation. But the requirement is that you tap when you're conversing with this part of your voice. And I want to say this is, as you tap, you may have an emotional charge that spikes. That's a really, really good sign. Just like you're aware of this inner critic, it's a really good sign because it's making the unconscious conscious. So when you have an emotion that spikes, it means you've targeted the right area. The requirement is just keep tapping. Just keep tapping through it. Tapping works. If you keep tapping, you'll notice that you'll start to be able to take that emotion back down. So it's a really, really, really good sign if it spikes. So just know that going in. And then just follow along with me on this tapping sequence. So even though I don't always accept myself. In fact, I'm pretty hard on myself. I choose to acknowledge that I feel this way. Even though I notice this harsh inner critic, it's pretty debilitating. I choose to acknowledge this part of me. Even though I'm starting to be aware of how hard I can be on myself. I see my inner critic, and I'm starting to hear my inner critic more. I choose to acknowledge myself anyway. My inner critic. It's really hard on me. I have this voice, this part of me that really comes after me. I get exhausted. I get overwhelmed. And I even get scared. I'm so hard on myself. And I see that it's my inner critic. But it's not all of who I am. It's just one part of me. What if, by acknowledging this part of me, I can start to accept this part of me? What if this is the beginning of genuine self-acceptance? Last time I checked, I'm still on planet Earth, and I'm pretty sure I'm still human. And by very nature, I'm fallible. I make mistakes. Sometimes I screw up. But I want to start making that okay. Because if I'm making mistakes, I'm on the playing field of life. I'm in the game. And I'm not sitting on the sidelines. What if I can embrace this about myself? That making mistakes is actually a good sign that I'm in the game of life. I want to begin to accept myself. And what if I can do that? One tiny step at a time. To create an opening for self-acceptance. I might not be where I want to be, but I can get where I want to be by acknowledging myself and coming to accept myself completely. And as soon as I get where I want to go, some new desire will spring forth, and I'll be on my way again. I will never arrive. My life is the journey. And I'd like to begin to accept myself now. So just take a breath with that. And as always with tapping, just take note. If strong emotions came up, just keep tapping. You can go back through and tap through the sequence. And really the idea is just to start to pay attention, that inner critic, and start to learn to take note of it. Because it really is true. If you're making mistakes in life, you're on the playing field. You're not sitting on the sidelines. And I have a magnet on my refrigerator that I bought a couple of years ago when I was in Durango, Colorado, and I loved it. And I finally get it. Like I bought it before I ever really got it. Always make new mistakes. That's what it says. Always make new mistakes. And to me, that means I'm in the game of life and I'm in the journey. So thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next video. Take good care.